In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. I am, in this moment, giving this lecture to not just only the human species, but in the presence of the unconditional beyond the world room system admin of this existentially simulated system. And I am also communicating in the presence of all formats of intelligence and all, even the viewers from beyond our realm. That means I am Muslim. In Islam there's 7 heavens. The highest heaven is Jannat al-Firdaus, which is another way of saying you are, it's as if like it's one thing you trust God, but when God trusts you, that's something else. So I believe this world room has a system admin, has an owner. I believe it's also a simulation. We're being tested here. I also believe it's a divine surveillance state with there's an awareness within all reality that is conscious of itself in ways that we cannot communicate as human beings. I believe that we human beings are functioning with like this couple pound brain, inside our skulls, and at the same time there's an ultimately something that moves. And I have come to the conclusion, this wasn't easy for me, but I came to this realization because I was like, okay, either I loop in my own preferences or I get to see what it is actually. And so in my own way, I decided to climb the mountain of knowledge on earth. And I came to the fascinating realization that behind every known idea to man, there was an unknown world happening beyond man's control. So it's kind of like realizing in front of our eyes we didn't create this world, and so we don't control it. The only thing we can control, it seems, is how we give meaning to it and then play along with that meaning. So an unknown force that sought its source. I'm trying to say that I kind of realized, I guess this is the simplest way I can say it. I've like dived deep into this in other lectures, but for this lecture I'll just say it simply. Really, guys, this is it. It's I'll just say it directly to you. Right now, if I ask you where you are, like the normal answer is like, or what you are and all this, the normal answer is like you're a human, member of the human species, and you are on planet Earth, right? Now, the whole point of the unknown is kind of going further back. That means the privilege of stability is to wonder about all the instability around it. So for me, I put myself in the shoes of my ancestors by visualizing so far back that they didn't even have shoes, right? And wondering how the early human beings dealt with, in some sense, being appearing in the presence of a world beyond them in a strange format, right? So I feel that, just playfully, I say it like this: all right, our ancestors opened their eyes. They're like, okay, this is too unknown, too random. I don't know what to do with this. All right, guys, let's tell a story over this that we can control. So what it is that we are a gifted species. I'm not kidding. We are a gifted species, and we have been gifted system admin privileges. It doesn't mean any of us are the system admin. It just means that you can either look at this life as they've always have, like, yo man, everything's true, or you can look at it and be like, wait a minute, it's more like there's so many simulations simultaneously happening, poetically equivalent to planets having aligned. So what I'm trying to say is that we can't ignore the fact that when the human being opens its eyes and looks at reality, it is identifying with reality, right? So how do I say this? All right. So how do I tell you that how do I tell this world that a member of the human species has become conscious? All right. Guys, this music is so classically, I feel like I'm speaking in front of every scholar that has ever lived. All right, guys, this is the story. I mean, I can't really. It's just, I gotta just say it how I see it. After 12,000 days of conscious existence in this realm and observing human beings, I feel that what is going on is something that is humorous, but also fascinating, but also it's madness. Do you know that means something bizarre is happening, and it's not like good or evil, it's bizarre. Like it's as if something that is happening that is on that is meaningless in the meaning. Do you know of it? So this is the notion. The early human beings opened their eyes. They're like, okay, I don't know what I'm looking at, so I gotta tell a story. Okay, they storified everything. They languagified everything. Do you know? They're like, okay, any object we haven't named, we're gonna name, right? Like, can you imagine the bliss those the first people who realized they could name things started? They were like, yeah, man, I'm gonna call this an apple, and we're gonna call that the sun. Do you know what I mean? And so language that was generated within the human mind as a symbol was aligned. So really what the brain has done is it has been trained in a sort of innate ability to process symbols. And really what I find is that if you asked me, like if somebody told me, hey man, you're a person on earth, with a specific backstory and a sort of, ambition of egoism and all of this, I'll be like, okay. But then if you tell me, yo man, I'm an unknown force and I'm seeking my source. That means to me, my worldview has become something so different that if anybody says, yo, man, are you spiritual? I'll be like, it is religious, but and religious in the sense of no longer allowing, like, let me tell you this. You're listening to a human being that has experienced so many different states of ego. And what that means is how I have been an idea to myself, and how many moments that I have moved the idea, and how many moments that the idea was just the nature of what the moment had to be. That means there's some people on this planet, you call them physicists. What are they doing? They're looking at natural laws. Okay? And then let's say there are some of those, like, they're not physicists, but they are explorers of reality, and they wonder about the true nature, the true presence of being. Do you know, at some point, guys, it's not about me being a podcaster and you being a listener. It's about souls in an unknown world wondering why we're all here. A massive exploration, the context of limitation break, because the limitless was right here. Do you know? And it's no longer about the idolization of the individual. It is now about the entrance of an advanced human collective. That means right now, if it's all based on time of scale. Imagine there's like parallel versions of reality. I'm just saying this is abstract, but imagine in one parallel version of reality, tomorrow the whole planet ends. In one version of reality, the planet goes so infinitely far. Evolution and species and psychology and advanced civilizations, all of that, right? And so you see, what I'm trying to say is that at first you think it's the game of bodies. Then you realize, wait a minute, those who are playing the game of bodies really well, they're actually playing another game called the game of minds. And so you're like, oh my God, a game of minds. And so you go and get good at the game of minds. And then you wonder about, okay, among all those people playing the game of minds, there's this sense of kind of gloom of, like, the cost of, missing out on what one actually deserves. I don't know how to say it, but the mind will not be satisfied. And it's the mind is the ego is kind of becomes conscious. It's trapped. Like somebody says, yo man, why is the ego living anti-human sometimes? And I'll be like, bro, it's kind of like we created a being that is existing between our conscious awareness and physical existence. That means sometimes I'm like, yo man, is it natural to be an idea of myself? Or is it more natural to be a sort of starting from the silence and stillness and observing whatever animates in the moment, and then realizing, is identity just where your attention is? Do you know that means in a world permitted for anybody to identify as anything? Do you know what that means? That means somebody can identify as like something that doesn't even exist yet. Do you understand? That means somebody. So we have to realize it's all about becoming conscious that you are actually, all of us were born in what I term it as the linguistic simulation. And there may be so many humans in modern civilization bored, and they're like, man, is this just life, just some sort of survival game, or is there something more to it? And this is my kind of argument to everybody. And I'm like, guys, there's so much more to this life than what society has shown, that at this point I feel that it's kind of like, how do I say it? If they tell me, yo man, where would you love to be? I would be in the halls of the greatest strategists. That's my vision, right? For me, I understand that there has to be vision to give momentum, because if you go do the research, the greatest revolutions that have happened, they have actually started from a narrative. They have their original power started, it was narrative power. Do you understand? That means stories have led to the greatest revolutions. Do you understand? Now, what is a story? A story is about a character, and a character's vision. So ultimately, it's all about vision. right? And to me, it's very fascinating because there's 8 billion human beings on this planet, and every day I wake up and I'm like, how are we all living here? And what are we not seeing? Right? Like, what are we not realizing about how advanced it can all be? And it's not in some sense, ideological warfare, because how do I explain it to you? I just have this simple view. You've been born into a system. You update the system before you leave the system. That's like common existential courtesy. You don't even need to have like some sort of belief system. It's just honoring where all of us came from. Like on some level, we're all existing in this moment. I had this discussion, guys. Sorry to kind of go on a tangent here, but legit today, I had a discussion with one of my uncles in this family gathering, right? And I was telling him, like, when you look at life and everything, is everything real and true for you? Do you think this world is real? Right? And he looked at me and he's like, yeah, it's all real, man. Do you know? And then he said some stuff about like how he believes we're souls that eventually return to the system. Admin, he didn't use the term system admin, but in some sense he's here to kind of grow, and he believes in like infinite lifetimes and all of this. Right? And so he's making this argument that he believes he's a soul that's living infinite lifetimes, and I'm making this argument like, yo, man, what's the point of looping infinitely? I'm telling you, the whole world is a simulation. Do you know? And I told him that in some sense the body is a simulation for a certain time. Do you understand? Our behaviors, our ideas, our thoughts, they're all simulations for a certain time. Even, excuse me, even this lecture has been simulated from the beginning to its end. Guys, the people on the chat section, if you're like real, right? You're not just they're like AI, like join the Discord server after this. Do you know? Imagine an AI bot joins the Discord server. That'd be the scariest shit ever. All right. Guys, I think there's something super important about just, this idea that we're an unknown force in an unknown world, an unknown self in an unknown world with unknown dreams and unknown beliefs and unknown movements and unknown actions, and then in the middle of this massive everything's happening in an unknown way, right? Suddenly the human being's like, wait a minute, I've had it with this the chaos all everywhere. I'm gonna organize all of existence, and I'm gonna organize it around me. And so the distance from me to every physical thing is in some sense is the space of my separation to it. Do you understand? And so that's when suddenly individualism began in the being. I'm trying to tell you, like, in the same way you can be fascinated by an idea, in the same way you can be fascinated with states of awareness and attention. Because in honesty, let me tell you something. To me, this is so mind-blowing, but when I tell people, they're like, meh. And I'm like, yo, listen, like right now, let's say we built an advanced civilization or whatever, like we right now had the most advanced view of the human, still in deep sleep there would be no advanced civilization. So it's strange, it's funny how much of what human civilization and all its effort and glory and dreams and greatness is, it's a certain range of a state of consciousness where there is a continuity. Our species is behaving on this earth in a way that it is organizing, and it's now organizing through every what you can stay right. You can say we're still in the era of self-worship. Do you know what that means? That means if you ask everyone what's the most important thing in your life, like they can act like heroic, but really, because yourself has to survive, there's a self focus. You know, it's like, think of it this way, your attention has been self obsessed on yourself. And you know, you should hear that, like, yo, is Mr. Within telling me that my whole life I've been obsessed about myself and I've never wondered about what's beyond the meaning I give to reality, and how does reality actually work, and in some sense what is this language and story to reality we're telling, when everything, when in the grander picture it's a unknown verb, and now we act like, yo man, I know, I'm a noun, do you know you're a noun, and we show off, like, what is that? Do you know? It's like, yo, man, it's like, what's a person? It's a noun. Okay? And then what's a good person? What's a bad person? It's all like from Plato's world of forms, or from Olam al Mithal in the Islamic tradition. It means that geometry existence, since only the owner of existence owns geometry. I don't know how to explain it. It's like some of the viewers are gonna be like, "What are you talking about?" And I'll be like, "What am I not talking about?" Like, that's the problem. All right, guys. All right, let's be serious here. This is a very honestly important topic. I gotta like put it together here. And the viewers, guys. So let me tell you how I'm approaching this lecture. So I'm looking at the title and I'm like, what does it mean to me? And I'm saying some things about it. You could do that too in this chat section. Imagine you write like freaking 1,000-page like essays, and I'm like, yeah, that's too much. In honesty, it's like, what can you do when you've been looping in reality for a while? At some point you're like, all right, man, whatever, the world is doing what it's doing, people are doing what they're doing, you know, the trees, the birds, the squirrels, the planets, they know what they're doing, you know, and so I'm here wondering about what I'm doing, and I'm realizing whatever I do, I cannot ignore the fact that I am being simultaneously. And so what am I being? Do you know? And it's a question, like, I really had to, like, one moment sit down with myself and be like, yo, I need to decide, what do I want to be here on this, in this world? And guys, this question was so deep because it wasn't a question limited to the human idea. Like, there honestly arose a moment where the view was kind of like, okay, not just what am I doing here, like, what am I being here? Like, that question was like occurred to me as this unknown force that is aware just of how the moment was being when that question arose to it. And so I realized, because I didn't know, I could not rely on knowledge. And it's very strange. It's like, I am not ungrateful of knowledge. I have honored knowledge from the beginning in my lectures, because to me, I feel everything is leading to its advancement. Like, you know, why else? Like, when you look at people, like every person I see, you know, I'm like, what are they doing? And it's like they're living for their future self's world. They're trying to build the world of their future self. And then I'm like, okay, why isn't everybody building the world of the future self of everybody? So it's as if this notion of advanced civilization, it's something that for me in 2025, like I feel kind of like, blessed. It's strange how I've reached this state of awareness to even notice this. But like in 2025, I am not just trying to live ahead where being like, okay, what am I gonna do tomorrow? It's like wondering about what would the tomorrow of the species be. It's trying to it's like, okay, do I choose in regards to trying to answer the question, what do I want to be here, right? And it's like, do I just want to be an object here? Do I just want to identify as my body? Do you know? Or do I want to identify as an ego, especially in the domain of communication and language and meaning and storytelling and how we're a character in a world and all that, right? So do I just want to be a mind? Do I want to function as just a mental being, not just a physical being? And then the one question comes, wait a minute, if I am aware of two different thoughts before I decide to act upon one of those thoughts, it means I am aware of my multiple thoughts at the same time. Because you're aware of multiple thoughts, that's proof you can't be one thought. So it's a choice to be a thought. But you're not one thought if you're aware of multiple, right? So then the question comes, okay, in regards to what do I want to be here, the question doesn't become, okay, what do I want to be here? Just an athletic body, just what's the term, like a champion mind is that just what I want to be in this realm? And the question then comes, wait a minute, what do I deal? Let's say I became responsible for the body, completely responsible for the mind, and then wondering about what else there was to be responsible for, and realizing, okay, how do I deal with this notion that before people just started naming everything and acting like those names were reality, and then the linguistic simulation kind of arising? To become responsible for this unknown life force, one realizes the ego can't. What I'm trying to tell you, guys, is it's so much more fascinating, exciting than anything that can even relate to my individual character. I am saying we're no longer at a time where there's like outer revolutions where people run in the streets, because there's advanced technology, you know what I mean? They could just put sleeping gas, like, you know what I mean? Like, so there's no point of revolution. But there is no point of external revolution also because we're choosing to be advanced communicators and civilized. But it's very important to have internal revolutions. So I truly do consider myself an internal revolutionary in history. And let me tell you why. Because I had to choose. It's pretty much like Robert Frost got it right. The path less traveled by, even though he didn't mean it that deeply. So to me, I'm like, okay, there's different ways that value can arise in the moment. And to be honest, I don't know how much of a good job I do in explaining this right now to you, but like it's still cool to have, like, on cyberspace, like in the online, right? Just some human being talking about this, I think. So guys, what I want to talk about is the just to open up this perception here right now that it's like I have this view, it's how do we compartmentalize our moment, and how does that compartmentalization lead to a value of it? That means you've opened your eyes, you're accessing your reality. What do you do with this reality? Or what value does this reality have? So this is you're right now listening to one human being's attempt at compartmentalizing. I have done it in so many different ways. This is my based on my energy levels. Even though I'm maybe like 40% tired right now. So I have this relationship with my moment where I have this, I don't know why, since childhood I've had this attitude. I don't know if it's like later on I realized maybe it's not the healthiest attitude, but for some reason I as a human being, just like how you're destined to have a specific DNA, it seems that human beings are destined to have different experiential sequences. But the sequencing of their experiences also has to do with their awareness. And so ultimately it's the activation of spirit. It's like somebody looking at being a young kid, right, and seeing everybody else being energetic and having fun, and you're just standing there kind of like more alert of everything in the environment rather than just being having fun in a game. So it's as if like having that nature of realizing that meaning in reality, it on some level you're like, okay, the same, if okay, how do I explain it? Like, my body is like a biological simulation, okay? My mind is like a subjective psychological simulation, okay? My soul is an unknowable, unknown verb of a force that in some sense is aware of all the nouns and is constantly moving through the moment. That means if I realize human beings, the world was too big for them to even see the end of it to be certain of anything, right? They named it, right? So what that means is, inside an existential simulation created by a system admin, that I'll talk about that a bit later. So inside an existential simulation, there came beings, there was present beings that in some sense created another simulation because the world was unknown, and they simulated they simulated knowledge through the process of characterization of the unknown life force that moves the human body. Do you understand? So I'm telling you, if you look at human civilization, you're like, okay, this is like how creatures on this planet are telling themselves the story of it all, right? But in reality, right, beyond human consciousness. So think of it this way: think of like everything you are aware of as a being, one human being. Now imagine there were 8 billion human beings, like that are simultaneously aware. Right, so to me it's kind of like it's like, I think these are all like kind of like the same statement but in different contexts. Like there's not only 8 billion human bodies here, there's not only 8 billion human mind intelligences here, or inner selves, right? But there's also 8 billion souls here, human souls, right? And 8 billion human souls are these beings that out of all the species on Earth have advanced so far that have the greatest capability of making contact with that which is beyond the human archetype. So this is why when divinity, the era of divinity began, magic became obsolete because it was so inferior, because divinity had brought the role of man into the context of macro truth. So the micro man in some sense noticed the macro truth. To me, I have lived a very interesting life. There has been various states of attention I have been, but my ultimate conclusion is that I am a life form, but what's actually giving this talk and what is like communicating here, yes, like in context of human civilization, I'm an individual, born in a certain time with the specificity of a story of a lifetime, right? But I am also an unknown force, yo. And this unknown force, life force, so it's like I'm an unknown force moving a life form. I'm an unknown life force moving an unknown life form in a way that, in some sense, in a know that I know the life form, and so how do I how do I say it? It's like an, oh my god, it's this is getting serious. Okay, guys, this is super interesting. Let me see if I can get the geometry right here. So there's an unknown world. Okay, that's the first layer of reality. Then you have, in some sense, the known human simulated world. That means how human beings have known the world is the simulation of the meaning of our species. And also how we've organized everything. And so okay, we have an unknown. Okay, we have first the dynamic of self and world. Okay, so we have a known self and a known world, and that's where I'm giving this talk. I'm giving this talk right now as a known self in a known world, right? And you guys are all known selves in a known world listening to my talk. Okay, but now I'm saying, okay, so if the world has if the whole the human if the the whole human known world is encapsulated and present within a beyond our ability to see its edge and end unknown world, right? So it's like we're actually inside an unknown world. We've just been simulated here, and we've simulated a way of knowing it, and then this has in some sense globalized, right? And so right now it's very fascinating because right now in 2025, maybe this is something the future generations can appreciate from what I'm saying. I truly wonder what, like, the future generations that will be born on this earth, in how many different ways would they be able to be human that we haven't even understood yet? That means if somebody tells me right now the humans in 2025, are they like, are they, is this the definition of a human, right? And I'll be like, the definition of a human in 2025, yes, but in some sense not the most advanced state of humanity. To me, I believe every moment has an advanced state, and we need to find it. That means there is no such thing as you can't be hopeless. They're like, yo man, what did Sherlock Holmes do? Do you know when he was in in a situation where everybody thought it was hopeless? The dude was calculating his hopelessness. You know what I mean? Like, he's like, okay, I gotta kind of like, figure out why everybody is hopeless, and what would the world that we weren't all hopeless look like? You know what I mean? So that's what else can we do? We wonder about the contrast of reality and wonder about what other ways it can move. So I'm saying that yes, my body is living a life of survival. My mind is living a life of purpose and service, and purpose and service to the system admin. That means I am, if they're like, yo man, are you like such a pure-hearted being that's truly living for the human species only? I'll be like, I'm living for the most advanced power first, and then I'm living for the human civilization, and the most advanced power is beyond any human idea. That means it's like when I pray, I am praying to a power beyond. That means even I don't need to even like even when I pray, like if I pray correctly or incorrectly, you're telling me a system admin that is all knowing doesn't know what my intent is. Do you understand? That means prayer is like you're going in the presence of the source of reality, right? It's not about like, okay, do this action like medicine, and it's like, yeah, prayer is medicine. Just make sure you take your medicine and you're gonna be all right in the afterlife. Afterlife? What is this? They've medicated truth. It's not a the issue is, right? It's not. There's not. How would I tell you? There's nothing wrong with it when it's sincerely conducted. Anything insincerely conducted is an error. Do you understand? That means it doesn't matter if it's what religion or whatever. If you're sincere, that means you're living in accordance to the values of the original view. For me, it's like years have gone by. I've looked at reality and I'm like, what is this? What is the point of this, right? And I think it was yesterday where I gave this talk on like, yo man, I really feel like maybe I've reached the midpoint of my life, right? Like physically, I'm like halfway like through this, right? I just had this thought, I don't know, right? And I was like, okay, so what would that mean? That would mean just like, in some sense, how do I say it? It's as if like there was this original power commanded, and instantly the soul of man was created. The soul of man was commanded to say the divine names by this unimaginable system admin, and that means it performed in front of all manifestation, all reality, and all heaven and manifestation. God's creation bowed, except one moderator. So there was a system admin that created a user. All creation bowed not to the user, but to the greatness of the system admin that created it. And so all did it except one moderator. And one moderator, what was the sin of Shaitan? It wasn't that he was rude or he challenged God or something. Is that in Islamically, Shaitan denied one of God's names, which is his greatness. Do you understand? That means in some sense, it was like a moderator it was doubting the system admin, and because he doubted the system admin, he was trying to prove the whole world wrong rather than changing himself, right? Anyways, folks, it's all about realizing the same time you've been a character in a story, you've been a certain self in a certain world. You've tried to be true, in all the falsehood, and every night that you've slept, you've wondered who you've been and what you've done and how everything went. You know, that's the brilliance of the positioning of the human species. To me, I was like, okay, so obviously the purpose of life is not to just enjoy your own world, or you would have been born alone in a universe, just you and the universe. But because we're all gathered together in one environment, and we have cities and nations, and there's positions to our human identity, that means the most valuable thing about nations is not their military. It is that they have become a player in a global context. And so you don't understand, the United Nations should be what everybody should be paying attention to. I don't understand. Like, the United Nations should be much more interesting than sports. And they need to be able to like show these conversations and discussions. I said it in the year 2020. I said we're moving into the era of advanced communication, right? And what that means is that human beings are realizing that the reason human beings are so different from other species is that we might have been like them, but we became aware of the environment. And you look at other species, they're bound by their environment. That means some creatures are just surviving, some creatures become aware of how they're surviving, and they update their survival method. There is so many ways that the moment has moved, and there has been so many different human beings. And right now, as I give this lecture, how many different human beings, and what is the human being? It's a brain that's deciding from one angle, but from another angle it's a mind that has honor, and from another angle it's a soul that in some sense wants to remember its truth, its origin, right? So to me, I believe that we are inside a commanded universe. I believe that behind all natural law, there's divine command, and that divine command is, in some sense, to the human mind, unimaginable. I believe that behind the scenes of this reality, there's an invisible divine management. I honestly believe it's a divine surveillance state. That means some people are like, yo, well, what do you mean by that? I mean, imagine what a technological surveillance state would be. Everything's being recorded by cameras. Instead, imagine the eyes of every living creature is the surveillance state. It's just the awareness of life and presence. Even just the moment, the space itself is a surveillance state, right? So what does that mean? That means everything, that it's like we're in the presence of truth, wondering about what we do with this realization that the world is a simulation and delusional enjoyment. What is greatness? It is how this unknown life force, even though it hasn't reached its unknown source, it cares for the known force. For a religious person, it would be the realization that every person you have thought is a friend or an enemy, everything that you have classified with some sort of ethical dualism, you will realize from a religious perspective that existence belongs to a system admin. That means it's as if it's strange. It's as if like suddenly discovering what owns all souls. And what do I mean owns all souls? Let me explain to you what I mean by that. That language could be tricky to interpret. So, right now, I am not God. I consider myself a user. I consider myself a user present every day I wake up inside an existential, so there's existence, it's existential simulation. What does that mean? That means it's like this for a certain time and it changes. Okay, that's the whole point of a simulation. Do you understand? It's something that's projected and eventually the projection returns to the original. Okay, original state. Do you know? And there has to be an original for there to be a simulation, right? So the original's present first. That means people are looking for truth, but truth is the original moment before any simulated meaning was had an individualistic life in it. So where I'm going with this is that so there are people right now, or you go listen to my lectures before 2023, you're gonna see that I was someone who, honestly, if like I even had moments where in those years before 2023, I would look at my brother and I'd be like, yo man, I think I was Rishi Vyasa in a past life. Do you know what I mean? Right? Like I had this view of like some sort of spiritual identity beyond my human identity. You know, some next level interdimensional, alter ego of an like of a selfhood, right? Of like, yo man, I'm like some spiritual ascended awareness of reality that like I was like, playing trumpets for myself, you know? And so I came to the realization after 2023 that the ego is limited to the infinity. That means your identity as a self is dualistic, okay? So what it can't cross is infinity. That means the mind's greatest fear is not death. The mind's greatest fear is that if I'm looking for a singular truth and my mind can generate so many different views to every moment with so many different values out of an infinite multiple choice of viewpoints, which one should I choose to be true? So you begin to realize, or even the ego realizes, that it is limited, so it cannot act like king of its own world because there is a limitation of how far it can go before it loops back into its own world. So right now, the human species is alive at a very interesting time because you need to ask the question, do you know, why can your mind wonder about the most advanced self and the most advanced civilization and the most advanced civilization and the most advanced self? It's not a technological, unethical one. Do you know it is an advanced civilization? It's very fascinating because any advanced movement requires an advanced power. So it's like advanced movements will build an advanced civilization, right? But and so where do advanced movements come? Advanced movements are powered. Now, what is powering advanced movements? Well, the argument is being made that if we're not just allowing an idea to own the whole moment, right? We're actually an unknown witnessing life force and the mover of the moment, or as I would say it nowadays, the human experiencer, right? So you are experiencing the human as an unknown force rather than actually being the human, but you are also the human in the linguistic simulation and in the domains of human and meaning. So we're not changing anything. Everything is normal. We're just realizing behind the context of normality, there's a massive unknown, and what is administering the human mind is that the human mind looks at this massive unknown and says, out of all the infinite viewpoints I could generate, which one should I choose? And because it can't choose out of infinity, infinity is where the ego cannot remain as a dualistic self in a world, right? So the ego fears infinity, right? So it doesn't matter, like somebody could come and say, yo man, I'm the most alpha powerful, like, egoic, like, person on the planet. It doesn't matter. In an infinite context, the self and the world dynamic, if the awareness is not there anymore, there is no power ego. Do you understand? There's no power to the ego. The ego is just is an approach. In some sense, am I my communication, or am I the awareness that generates it before the communication arises? Right? So really what we are is beyond what we communicate, but what we communicate is trying to point to the depth of reality, and the true depth of reality is beyond the human thing. Understanding that means I reached that point where I was like, yo man, should I just infinitely become like a metaphysical explorer? And I was like, nah, doesn't make sense, right? At some point you look at this life and you realize, who is the main character? And this question is so deep. Who is the main character means if your whole life from the moment of you have been born, again I'm going to repeat this, it has been a sort of self-obsession. You wonder about, okay, could it be after like, thousands and thousands of days of living as my own egoic confident self, that owns the moment, right? Could it be that I reach that point where I wonder what else? And there is a force, this unknown force, it identifies with, I think, more the fascination of exploration than in some sense a sort of polite nounism in front of everyone else. To be honest, I'm saying like right now in the world, to compartmentalize it, these are the aspects of reality. There's the known, there's the unknown, there's the system admin, there are moderators, you are a user, and yet you are a user because you were created by the system admin. There is a divinity to the presence of the human soul. I'm not kidding. Because we were created by the original power, which is another way of saying the human soul is conscious of the original being. So it's another way of saying if we are right now think we're in a simulation, right? There's that awareness to the simulation is connected to the original life. So it's a matter of like waking up to reality and no longer life being about good and bad, but more the fascination being like, okay, is this what is beyond the simulation, or is my free will moving reality, or is there a way that the moment can have a value that is beyond my free will? Like, just think about it. If somebody puts an artwork in an art gallery, all those people come and see and go, and they looked at the artwork, and it's like, how many different values to that artwork arose? How many memories were created? To me, it's interesting because I come from a designer background. My attention to the designs of existence is very fascinating. And after some point, I am convinced it's a simulated testing zone. And people are going to be like, why? I'll be like, because the system admin has allowed us to be conscious of how sophisticated the genius and well thought and designed the human body is. Like, the body is ingeniously designed, okay? The human body, right? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like too designed. It's too designed to think it just everything came from randomity, you know? And yet the edge of the world is not allowed to be seen. So we're allowed to see this next level design and function of the human body, but we're not allowed to see the edge of the world. And I'm like, whoa, so the purpose of life is not to see the edge of the world. Okay, let's literally take reality literally, right? And we're like, okay, let's take divinity like literally. So the purpose of life is not to figure out the edge of the world. If we can't figure out the edge of the world, we can't figure out the edge of meaning. So the purpose of life cannot just be like, what does it mean? And then at the same time, right, we don't know what's really looking through our eyes because it can identify with any idea it projects in the moment or responds as. So it's very fascinating to me that it's like it's like, think about, like, you know what, sometimes I look at existence and I feel like, man, if I was to, let's say, redesign everything from the beginning, there's no way I could do any of this. right? Because it in some sense, like how it is positioned there, to me, beyond the natural law is divine law. And divine law is not just revelation, it is the realization you're in the presence of a higher power. And it's fascinating. It's the coolest thing ever. They're like, yo, man, is it cooler than talking to aliens? I'm like, yeah. Oh my, is it cooler than talking to advanced AI? Like, oh my God, yeah. Do you know? And why is it cool? Because you, as a being, it's like, it's strange when you realize you're a simulated self inside a simulated earth. What is there left to do with that unknown original awareness? To find the original earth, to find your original life, to find your original being, your original self. And that's another way of saying, I guess, from because I'm Muslim, from a religious context, of every God commands. God's way of bringing forth reality is by commanding it into existence. And so every soul that is present in the simulation has been commanded, but it doesn't know what the command is. But its nature is based on that command. So that means you might think that your biological cells and your whole atoms and body and everything is functioning just in accordance to your ego and brain and ideal view, but no, what is under behind existence is the divine command of a system admin, that this world is in some sense, how do I say it? If you didn't create this world and you found yourself in this world and you found intelligence that in some sense can create worlds, like the moment the human being could fathom that, it's like somebody who could learn how to write and realize, wondered if we're all inside the novel of a higher power, right? It's so I'm telling you, to have a religious experience is equivalent to a character in a novel realizing God's handwriting in every moment. Like, that's a divine person. But they can never identify as God. So it's like, think of it this way. I went to build an advanced civilization, and in 2023 I realized the ego cannot do it. Its original power can't be based on just the heroism of the individual. It is, in some sense, it requires a higher power. I'm telling you. In the same way, they're like, yo, man, as a man, you're required to get a wife. In the same way, as a conscious being in a world, you're required to notice the higher power if you choose to truly comprehend the nature of the simulation and go beyond it. That means it's like, if you wanted to know, if I was the strategist of this moment, of a moment of being, and you came to me and you're like, what's the protocol here on earth? I'll be like, okay, first connect to that, or like wonder about the original power of reality, and begin having a relationship with it. Use your intelligence, be in some sense honorable, because in some sense you're wondering about reality, and do not worship anything that has a shape or form. That's like how it's still worldly. That means in Islam, Prophet Isa or Prophet Christ was a messenger, was a prophet. And what was the message Christ brought? It wasn't just to love each other. It was that there is this higher power that everything is occurring in front of, is in the presence of. So first be aware of the most advanced power, and as you are conscious of that advanced power and have acknowledged that advanced power, then begin living your advanced life, and you'll be fascinated. Reality moves not in the inner realms very differently than in the outer realms, and the most immediate ability that can stabilize human beings to immediately become advanced after that is an ability to discriminate between what you give meaning to, what is just a shape in your world, and what is just a shape in your mind. For me, my mind sees this world, and you could put anything in front of my mind, and it's like I'm physically just sitting there just by looking at it. my mind leaps from thought to thought to thought to thought, and in some sense conscious of the geometry of all the sequencing of all the ideas arise from by just viewing it something new. It's as if on some level I'm not conscious of how the synapses are occurring, the neural synapses are occurring in the brain, but I am conscious of all the different ideas that arise. And so in some sense it's strange, because we are this unknown witnessing force within an unknown world, because really we even say it in our language: my body, my mind, my soul. Who's that my? That my is the awareness of the moment, the unknown awareness. So right now, what is looking through my eyes is truly more unknown than known, but when it expresses in a known world, well, then it's a known self. Anyways, thank you for listening. What else? Oh, on the subtitle I wrote what is the main point of reality. And I thought I wrote that not in the sense of like in the deep depth of like what is the main point of it all. I said it's like, what is the main point? Where is it all starting from? And I discovered something fascinating. It's like it had to have an unknown beginning, because there was no knowledge back then. So it was unknown, unconscious movement. And so unconscious movement cannot be fathomed by conscious beings that came after that unconscious movement. To me, it's fascinating. Knowledge is just like, being in the same spheres of awareness in accordance to the limits of that idea. It's as if, when they come and ask the person, like, when the person's like a young child, not like they go and ask a 90-year-old man, what do you want to be in the afterlife? Oh my God, that is crazy. You know what? It's not. It's like, how they ask children, what do you want to be when you grow up? So it's as if, are they asking what sort of concept do you want to be, or what sort of context do you want to be in? You see the depth of that? So, anyways, that's in the, let's say, domain of language. And the title said an unknown force seeking its source or something. As unknown moments of experience of the human reality, through the realization that we are unknown life forces, there's nothing to fear, but realize that when they told you anything is possible, they meant that you can reconceptualize yourself in any way, and truly reconceptualize yourself. Even the only way it can happen is that if there is new context, that means you need to grow, not just the concepts of your reality need to grow, but the context of reality needs to grow and expand. That means there are. It's as if the awareness to reality is deeper than whatever the human idea is aware of. We are positioned not to act like the higher power. We're positioned to be aware and have a role in the presence of the higher power. Anyways, folks, thank you for listening. And I'm going to end the talk here, actually. And what is the main point of reality? I would say that if you consider it to be a simulation, it is to become aware of the original system administrative power, and to be conscious of the system admin, and honestly have your own soul's relationship. Usually for Muslims it is through prayer, and even praying 5 times a day. Aside from how societal cultural views there are on it, it's just moments where you pause the simulation of the world and you're just in the presence of the original power, where everything is in its command and praise. Everything that means they're like, yo man, like Are you Muslim? And I'm like, yo, man, you don't know. I realized every atom in existence was Muslim before I was Muslim. And they're like, what do you mean? That means everything in existence is in the Holy Quran. It points to this view that everything in existence is aware of what has brought it into existence and is in its awe and praise. That means whether you know it or not, your soul is fascinated that it is in the presence of the original power, but there's also the weight of the soul and how obliviously it has chosen to be the ego. Do you understand? That means, guys, I don't want to tell good people or bad people what to do, but I just want to say that in order to build an advanced civilization, we must have the patience to become aware of all the views and then wonder about what possibilities there are to go forth. So it's like your body is one physical life you're dealing with, where all the others are there as well. Your mind is all the probabilities of how your individual physical life has a relationship. It's like, yo, man, is my mind here is my mind here to manage how I'm here to be how I'm a self in a world? And in utter honesty, yeah, but what is managing the mind even is an awareness to the unknown nature of reality. And from the unknown nature of reality, the options is either reality has no meaning, either you give it meaning, or there is ultimate meaning, which is another way of saying the system administrative force moves the moment. That means it's as if I don't choose to be me, the moment is divinely commanded anyways. That means how moments happen is not just based on one in humans' values. Like it's not just based on human values. Anyways, thank you for listening. I hope this lecture was interesting. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Guys, I might go on Discord right now. Feel free to join. If not, then the moment is destined for something else. Thank you.